Welcome back. This is Nigel again for the third installment of IntelliWeb Basics. In this IntelliWeb Basics course, what we're going to be looking at is the navigation view. This is a very powerful tool that we use as engineers all the time, but is definitely useful to be familiar with from an operator standpoint. There's a lot to go over here, but I'm going to actually kind of skip over a lot of the detail here just to give you a general idea of how it works and how to make overrides, some basic things like that, and how to look at data. So we'll start by going to IntelliWeb, which I have prepared. So we're logged in and we are under navigation. So navigation, graphics, alarms, right? So we want to go under navigation, and to start off, you can start by, this isn't going to give you any data really on the equipment that you're looking at, but if you do click on just the name of your site, what it will do is we'll actually load all of the controllers that are there on that site. So it will give you, the name of the controller generally is going to be like what type of equipment it controls, or just the name of like an NAE, stuff like that for this site. Its device ID. The device IDs across the BACnet network all have to be unique, so they all have to have their own unique ID across every site. Then it's also going to give you the model name of the controller, the version of the hardware that is on there, the firmware version, the vendor ID. This ties to which manufacturer makes it, and then just the status, which is probably the most important. You can see all the controllers here are okay. If a controller goes offline, the status will read offline for that controller. You won't be able to pull any data from it, obviously, when a controller is offline. Offline controllers are generally, the power got turned off to it, or it's, in service because someone's working on it, stuff of that nature. Sometimes wires get cut and you lose communications to controllers. That does happen, especially like active job sites where they're doing renovations. So by clicking on the name of your site over here, you can load all the controllers, get all their statuses, model name, version number. So if you do need to get a replacement part, that's all pretty easily accessible here. So even if it did go offline, you can't see it anymore, you will still have the information of its model name, version number, firmware, all of that. So kind of a cool feature just right off the bat. You won't find yourself there very often, but I just wanted to show that to you. Moving along, if you do expand your site, what you'll see is the controllers are kind of grouped. And the way that they're grouped from Delta's perspective is either they're a Delta controller or they're a third-party controller. Third-party controllers are going to be your manufacturers like Siemens, Honeywell, Johnson Controls. Pretty much anything that's not Delta will appear under the third-party folder. But what you're actually looking at when you look at a site here is really the network architecture of all the controllers, and they're talking to each other, and then all the data points within those controllers. So this is kind of the raw data of what the building automation system is. And then if you see a device like this RTR right here, which is a Delta controller, if there's any devices underneath it, you will see this little plus, and if you hit the plus, it will show you the controller that's underneath this RTR. In this case, there's only one. Sometimes you'll see many. Going into the third-party folder, if we expand that, you can see that the site actually does have a lot of third-party equipment in here. So you can see that there. And so just to get into a controller, to see the data points in there, let me see if I can pick one that's probably a good example. So we have some water source heat pumps here. So this is water source heat pump for grades 6 through 8. That's what it's going to show you here. And if I expand this out a little bit further, you can see what it does is it shows you the name of the controller and then its device ID, which is the ID that you see in this column over here. So if I click on, let's just do that grade 6 through 8, water source heat pump 17. So when I first click on it, I don't have any filters applied. This is what it's going to do is it's going to go out to the controller on the network and request all of the current live data for that controller. So it's going to load all that live data right here in front of me. What IntelliWeb does is it kind of breaks the data into different sections, because some points are just, temperature readings, and then some things actually control actuators or control fans and valves and things of that nature. So it breaks it into multiple sections here. These sections are, the first one it's going to load are inputs, and then you have outputs. So inputs are anything that you're reading, so temperature, status, occupancy in this case, right? There's an occupied one here. And they're generally broken into predominantly two different types. There's going to be your analog inputs, or AI, which are AIs right here, or your BIs, binaries. So you have binary inputs, binary outputs down here, analog inputs, and analog outputs. An analog input's going to be a temperature reading. A binary input's going to be a fan status, right? So leaving water temperature and supply fan status, right? One is on off, one is reading a temperature. Same thing goes for these analogs and binaries. So if we look at the analog motor, supply fan motor signal output. So we're telling this fan to run at 45% of its maximum speed, right? If we look at the binary out, that is the supply fan enable. So it turns the fan on and then tells it what speed to go at, right? So those are different ones there. So what you can do in here is you can actually select these, obviously, and highlight them. You can also collapse the types of data points. So maybe I'm not interested in the inputs or outputs, and I just want to see the variables, right? Or values, as they refer to them. Values, think of values as like any sort of calculated data point or set points or things that don't actually have any physical equipment tied to them, right? But they're important, right? A set point is important for a zone. You'll find that under the values section. And you can see there's a lot of stuff that goes into programming these controllers. So there's a lot of values in here. You can collapse that. Below that, even further, are your trend logs, which you looked at in another video. Those will show you the trend. So let's just look at space temperature, right? So actually what I can do is I can right click, open in a new tab, and what that's going to do is it's going to load the space temperature for a period of time. All right. It depends on the controller. It depends how much time it can actually store, but you can see we're going back to September 9th, actually. It looks as far as back as we're looking here. So you can go back and you can see that. You can see what the temperatures were. They went from 70 degrees, and they went up to 72, and then they came back down around 3 p.m. So you can see the time of day and the value at that time of day. Different controllers, different vendors, they're going to give you different amounts of data that you can go back and see. That's pretty much across the industry. So sometimes they might have a trend log, sometimes they might not. Sometimes the trend log might be only a couple of hours. Sometimes it could be a couple of weeks. It really depends on the manufacturer. But so that, I just wanted to show that to you guys again, because I think the trend logs are a very powerful tool. And then, if you wanted to look at a specific section, you can highlight it. Dig into, oh, I had a problem here at around 3:30 or anything like that. Very powerful tools. So going back, those are the trend logs. And then there are generally going to be some other types of objects in here. They're more configurations, database stuff, things that you really don't need to worry about. Most of the stuff that you guys are going to be looking at are alarms, obviously, but those are in a different section. You can see them down here, but you really want to look at them somewhere else. Trend logs, values, outputs, inputs. So that's kind of the gist of how IntelliWeb does this. But if we do want to make like an override, like maybe we want this fan motor to be running at a higher speed, right? This is not a really great example. These should normally be in auto. But if we wanted to maybe override this fan motor, well, there's really two ways to do it. You can click the check mark here to highlight this one. And then you can go to Command, Manual. Oops, sorry. Actually, you don't want to do manual. You want to do manual value. And then you can type in what you want it to be. We'll see. I don't know if this controller is going to actually allow me to do this. Sometimes they don't. But let's just see. I'll hit save. And you'll see that this controller does not let me do that, right? Write access denied. So it's not letting me override that. That's not a point that it wants me to control. But I bet if I come down here, space temperature set point BAS, I bet I can adjust this. Manual value. Let's adjust the set point to 72 degrees. And I got the green check. That means that it did let me adjust this, and you'll see now the little hand indicating that it is in manual override, and you can see the temperature set point is now 72. All right. So to set this back to 70, I'll show you the other way to do a manual override, and that is actually by clicking on the name of the point. So if I click on the name of the point, give it a second, you'll see it will load the point page up here. Inside the point page, you can actually see the that it's in manual, and it's set to 72 degrees. So what I'll do is I'll set it to manual still, set that back to 70 degrees like it was before, hit save. Green check mark indicates that it did save. And one of the things that you might have actually also noticed is that IntelliWeb will actually save all of the historical overrides and information on a point. So you can see me as the demo operator did a manual override of 70 degrees at 3:39 p.m. On 9/11. So you can see and then there was my override before to 72 degrees. 1 minute before that. You can see the operator here at this site did an override 8:19, 70 degrees. So it does, IntelliWeb's really powerful in the sense that it keeps a history of everything that's been changed. So you can go back and see, who left this overridden, who turned this off, who did that. You can actually see all that information inside of here. So yeah, really, really quite powerful. And then you can hit close, and it will take you back to all of the data points in here. So one of the other cool features, and without going too much in the weeds, sometimes when you load a controller, say it's a central plant controller, you're going to have a ton of data points in here. Way too much to be sorting around and looking for it, stuff like that. So if you actually wanted to do a search, you could actually write. So if I wanted to find that set point again, I could type set point. And you'll see it will find all of the data points inside of this controller that are a set point or have the text set point inside of them. So you have your unoccupied heating and cooling set points, space temperature set point from the BAS, space temperature set point active, dehumidification set point. Pretty much all of your set points are right here just because I searched the word set point. Another really cool feature, there are some shortcuts. So if you just want to look at the inputs, you can actually just type IP and it will show you all of the inputs that are on that controller. If you type OP, it will do all of the outputs. If you want to see trend logs, you can type TL and just do that. So let's say you wanted to look at the trend logs and the inputs. You could do TL IP with a space in between, hit enter, and look, now I'm looking at the trend logs and the inputs, right? You could keep expanding that. I could do outputs then too. Maybe I don't want to look at all the outputs. Maybe I only want to look at the binary outputs, so the BO objects. I could hit enter. And you'll notice now, I don't have any of my analog outputs. I only have my binary outputs. So really powerful tool. You can kind of search just like that. So this is binary outputs. I could type it for my AO, for my analog outputs. You can see there's only one in this case. But it works a lot of different ways. So if it AIs and AOs, so analog outputs and my analog inputs. So you can kind of sort through the data really, really quickly. If I were going back to the set points, so if I do set point, hit enter, one of the interesting things, and it might not let me override, let me see how I can do this. So this is set to 80. What can I do here? So I can actually provide two overrides at the same time, right? So say I wanted these both to be 70 degrees. I could select multiples, right? I'm just going to do these two. But I'm going to do multiples, manual value, 70 degrees. And now you can see I wrote to two different objects at the same exact time with one command, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to set this one back to 80 degrees, hit enter, and boom, and we're back. All right, so that's kind of really cool. These search functions, they are really powerful up in here. You do also have a slightly less powerful search function up here, but you can search up here. So if I wanted to look at, and this will search all of my sites. So watch this. I will type in water source heat pump, WSHP. Hit enter. And look, it found water source heat pump controllers at both of these sites. Looks like Dunbar has a lot that are offline currently. So if a controller's offline, it's going to indicate it with a little X over here. But you can see I can search for water source heat pumps across both sites. And let's say I wanted to look at, actually let's look at these water, so there's even more in the third party, right? So the other cool thing is maybe I want to look at what these set points are for a group of heat pumps. I can actually click on one, hold down the shift key, click on one below it, click on one below it, and I will select multiple heat pumps. And now I'm loading the value for all of these heat pumps, all in one giant list. And maybe I just want to look at set point. So I think the point that we were looking at was space temperature set point BAS, right? Which is analog value 27. Watch this. I could just do AV 27. And now I have 4 set points for 4 different heat pumps. They're all going to load. As you can see, they're all 70 degrees. But I could do the multi-select thing if I wanted to adjust these set points, or I could actually just click this top button up here, which will automatically select them all for me. And then I could do manual value, 71 degrees. We'll just do a slight bump, right? Hit save. And now I just wrote to 4 different controllers, all with one command. Eventually, I think I did that. Network might be just a little bit slow. Oh, there we go. So you got the green check mark. Good, 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 good. So I just wrote to 4 different controller set points all at the same time. Where you're going to set those all back to 70 degrees so I don't upset anybody. But you can see it's just as easy as that. So there are some really powerful tools in here if you know what you're doing. The navigation is kind of the place to do it. We do a lot of work in here, but you have to have a good understanding of the site, the equipment, what points you're overriding, and how to pull that data through. So and this works for anything. So if I wanted to look at just for the trend logs for these 4 units, well, that's going to be for a lot of units. I can pull up the trend logs, TL. So these are all the trend logs for it, for these 4 units. And then I can actually sort up here by device name. And so I know the trend logs are all grouped. So I can see that this group right here is a group of all the trend logs inside of water source heat pump 10. From here, looks like there's 211. Or no, there's just a lot more trend logs inside of 11. But you can do multi-selects, all of that. Pretty cool, powerful stuff. So that pretty much covers it. I just kind of wanted to show you guys the capabilities of IntelliWeb in the navigation section. It is very powerful. I think the graphics are where you're going to end up spending most of your time because it's kind of tailored to fit for your site. But we do allow all of the operators to have access to the network tree so that they can get familiar with it, get better with it. It is definitely a very powerful tool, and I've seen a lot of different products from different vendors over the years, and this has got to be by far one of the strongest tools that is available in the BAS industry these days. So definitely take advantage of learning it because it is very valuable, and I think you guys will find use for it as you operate these buildings. Yep. All right, that's it for me. I will see you guys back for the alarm one in a little bit. All right, bye-bye.